Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to Some Truth and Accountability. I'm Dr. Pat Huff. I've got some interesting things to bring forward to you today that I hope you will enjoy and hope it will help you understand exactly what is happening in Austin as our legislature continues to move forward with the school reform agenda. You know, school reform has been with us now for about 30 years, so it's more the norm than not the norm. And this, of course, takes into account all of the standardized testing and all of the drill and kill that is going on in the schools today, and all of the teachers being forced to teach to the test so that they can get a proper evaluation. What we're going to talk about in a little bit is No Child Left Behind and what happened during that era and how it pretty much led to what we have today, which is a completely federalized education system. In Austin this past week, the Senate Education Committee once again met and talked about school choice, whether or not we're going to continue to allow charters and the expansion of charters. And also, we talked about equity in education and funding. The Senate panel, once again, brought forward their experts that talked in favor of the agenda of expanding school choice and the virtues of bringing forward vouchers and how good that would be. And once again, those that dissented were left to wait for hours until that expert testimony was finished, and then they got their customary 3 minutes apiece to voice their opposition. And then we had over on the State Board of Education side, they were talking about math and the new math standards. Now, you parents that have elementary school age children, you know how frustrating the new math is. You can't help your child with their homework. It's virtually foreign to you. Might as well be a foreign language that you don't know. And anyway, the same thing happened on the State Board of Education side. The chair of the State Board allowed the experts to come in. They were going to speak for as long as they wanted to. And we had one dissenting voice that was allowed to go at the first of the meeting for 3 minutes, and that was it. And he did a great job. Awesome. It's up on my Facebook page if you want to take a look at it. And then the experts came in and talked about the virtues of the new math program that is virtually hurting the children in elementary school. It's not helping them. It's harming them. And then you're left to wonder, who can change this? How can anything like this continue? And why does our elected representative, why do they continue to go down this path? Well, let me take you back to 2002 when No Child Left Behind was passed by the Congress. This was during George W. Bush's administration, right at the beginning, as a matter of fact. And of course, he had his education program here in Texas, and they had deemed it a great success, questionably, I might add. And he took that to Washington, and he brought forward his No Child Left Behind program that stayed with us for quite some time, about 15 years, as a matter of fact. By the time we were able to get rid of it, everyone was glad. I'm afraid what we have gotten in its place is going to turn out to be even worse, I'm afraid. Time will tell. In 2002, George W. Bush made the declaration, and I think a lot of you will remember this, especially those in education. But he made the declaration that by 2014, all students would be proficient on the test. Now, a lot of us in education didn't catch that. But he said all students would be proficient. And what that meant was, that would have been a worthy goal had it been a goal, had it been something that he had wanted everyone to aspire to. That would have been fine. Yeah, sure. Hopefully we're going to get everyone to pass that test. But what happened then is that was put into law. By 2014, everyone would pass the test. The state test. Well, that didn't happen, of course. But let me tell you what that did. It put into play a mechanism, a matrix, if you will. A matrix called adequate yearly progress. And so that incrementally, the percentages that were required to pass the test were incrementally going to rise. Until 2014, we would be at 100%. And if the schools were on target, if they were making adequate yearly progress toward 2014, by the time we got there, everybody would pass. Well, an interesting thing happened on the way to 2014. Schools began to fail in record numbers. And the reason why is because of a thing called subgroups. Subgroups were what all the students were put into according to either ethnicity, their social economic background, their language background, or their special needs background. And there were 7 categories. Actually, there were 5 before the federal government got involved, and the federal government added, with No Child Left Behind, added special education and English language learners. And those were 2 big categories to throw into the mix. And so each one of those categories had to meet the percentage that was required, the percentage for that year. Now, those percentages incrementally went up. And if you remember in the YouTube documentary that I did on poverty and why schools are failing, the percentage that is required takes its greatest toll in the inner city, in the Title I schools, in the areas of poverty, where our children are struggling just with their daily life to make ends meet. All the things that go along with poverty that affect a child's ability to learn and keep him from being not distracted in the classroom. In any event, AYP, adequate yearly progress, affected these schools the most. And so by 2010-2011 school year, we had a real crisis in education. Now, understand what I'm about to say to you. This was a manufactured crisis. Those that control the agenda in Washington, D.C. knew what was going to happen, and they were ready for it. By 2011, the percentage that was required in all of the subgroups was 83%. So 83% of everyone in those subgroups had to pass the test. Schools were failing in record numbers. Failing, of course, under this manufactured crisis. And so we had to do something about it. It was horrible. We had all of these documentaries that took place on TV about what to do with our schools. Some of you remember watching them. And of course, it was charter schools were expounded as a great avenue to go down to help children in the inner city. Well, when a school hits the wall and they can no longer do what is necessary to get all students over the hump and pass the test in all the subgroups. And keep in mind, all it takes is one subgroup to fail and the whole school fails. You can have wonderful programs in your school, but if your special education department doesn't meet the requirement for the percentage of that particular year, then the whole school fails. I know that's hard to understand, but that's how it was set up.